I think my resume sounds more impressive than it really is. And the reason for that is because I wrote an article that went viral, and then it was published in a lot of those different sources that he just listed. And that article was called "Marriage Isn't For You." Now, did any of you see that when it went? I'm so sorry. My wife didn't know I had published that article until we started getting phone calls and messages from the news. And she's like, "What's going on?" So I've never quite been able to live that one down. But the message of that article is something that I want to touch on. The message of that article was an experience that I had with my wife. She, in a moment where I was being very selfish and callous and unforgiving, she was the opposite. She was very forgiving, very loving, and very accepting of me. And it reminded me of some advice that my dad had given me, which was, Seth, you can't go into marriage thinking that this is all about you. Marriage isn't for you, it's for the person you love. And essentially, he said a lot of other things that were calling me out as being selfish, but I won't get into those particular comments. That's more specific to our family. Anyway, after that article was published, I had a lot of people come to me, particularly publishers in different venues like that, and they wanted me to write about and talk about how to go viral. Because the article went viral, it got 2 million views in the first weekend, and then it went on to get 10 million views, 10 million additional views the next couple of days. And right now it's had over 100 million views, and it's been 3 or 4 years. So it's had a lot of success, and so people want to come to me and ask, how do I go viral? How can I be successful in what I'm creating, in what I'm putting out there, in the content that I'm making? And I honestly, there's a million different things that I could recommend. There's a million different tactics and techniques and various things that you can do to improve your writing, improve your content, get your stuff out there. But I think the most important thing, and this is what I want you to walk away with, is that if you want to make an impact, just care. Care about the person. Care about your message. Care about what you're doing, right? Because then people, they wanted me to either write about marketing or they wanted me to write about marriage, and I am not a marriage expert. I mean, that was the whole premise of the articles. I don't know anything about marriage, right? But they wanted me to write more about marriage. They wanted me to write love and relationship articles, and I was tapped out. I didn't have any experience. I was married for 1.5 years when that went viral. And so they would ask me then, well, what are you passionate about? And I couldn't really answer them. And so in the years since then, I have been looking for what I'm really passionate about, what I really care about, what I want to make an impact in. And the picture that I'm going to show you is going to illustrate that point. And I hope this is easy for you to see. It's intentionally dark. It's supposed to be dark because it was nighttime. But this is the Grand Canyon. This is me hiking at the Grand Canyon. And this is my hand. I'm holding one of those cheap $1 flashlights that your mom gives to you when you tell her that you're going to hike the Grand Canyon. She's like, "Oh no, please be sure to be safe. Here, take this." Turned out to be really useful because it was the only light I really had when it got really dark. This is North Kaibab Trail. Now I hike the Grand Canyon probably about once a month. My wife will let me leave the house and go and hike to my heart's content. And so I'm gone for about 2 days, and I'll hike the Grand Canyon. And normally I hike I hike at the south rim. I'll go from South Kaibab Trail, I'll go down to the Colorado River, and then I'll go to the river, and then I'll come, as I hike along the river, I'll actually come back up to Bright Angel Trail. Basically, that's about 12 hours of hiking. My dad was in town in Arizona one day, and I thought, this is great. My dad's here. This will be fantastic. He can drop me off at the south rim, and instead of just hiking along the south rim of the Grand Canyon, I'll actually get down, go from the south rim all the way over to the north rim. I hear it's a couple miles longer. I think it's 1,000 feet higher, but whatever. I'm doing the hike. It's not going to take me 12 hours. It might take me 14, 15, 16 hours. I'll do that. And so I did that. He dropped me off. My dad is this really wonderful man, but he's not a man of many words. He's 72. He doesn't really want to talk or get to know you, even if you're his son. He's not really interested in your emotional problems. He just wants to drive and listen to his audiobooks. That's fine. That's all he wants to do. He doesn't really care. That's fine. He was able to take me to the South Rim. That's all I needed. And then he was going to go from the South Rim, drive his car around to the North Rim, park there, and then pick me up. And I told him, just judging by when he dropped me off, I said, it's probably going to take me 14, 15 hours, so you can probably expect to see me around 9 p.m., 10 p.m. at the latest. I thought I was good because I had had so much experience hiking the Grand Canyon. But as I went, when you cross the Colorado River, there's an area going on North Kaibab Trail. There's an area called the Box, right? And it's just these sheer cliffs, these sheer rock cliffs that you're hiking through. And I was actually hiking through that area when the sun was just beating down on me. And then you get through the Box, and then you're hiking in this more or less open area in the canyon. And again, I was hiking in the sun, just in the light. And I didn't count on that. That took the energy just right out of me. So by the time I got to that area where it's just switchbacks going up the rim of the Grand Canyon, I was out. I didn't have any energy. But I knew I had to keep going because my dad was waiting for me. And so I started hiking as best I could, but it wasn't fast enough, right? And then the light started to go. So I pulled out that $1 thing, which I hadn't counted on using, but I pulled it out. I switched it on, and I thought to myself, while I was hiking, right before I took this photograph, I thought to myself, hey, this would be kind of a cool story. I should take a picture of this. So I took my phone out, took a picture of it, and then my phone died. So now I'm in the canyon, North Kaibab Trail. It was about 8:30 or 9 p.m. It was getting dark. I had this $1 flashlight, and I couldn't call out. And even if the phone was working, I probably wouldn't have had reception to call, right? So I'm going along this trail, which I had had no experience hiking. It was getting darker and darker, and finally, that was all I had. I couldn't even, if I were to show you the videos, it's just, you see this little bit of light where I'm walking, and that was right before I took this photo. You just see this little bit of light while I'm walking, and that's it. I can just see a little bit ahead of me, and the temperature starts to drop as you go higher and higher in elevation. And my clothes were soaked, the wind picked up, and I started getting really cold. And I was dehydrated, and I was shivering. And I knew enough about wilderness therapy. I've worked at a wilderness therapy program for a number of years. I knew enough about survival situations that when you get to that point, you are in greater danger of getting hypothermia because the wind is hitting you and the chill can make you sick. And so I actually started, for the first time since I've hiked, I actually started worrying for my life. And I didn't know how much farther I had to go. But I knew I didn't have the energy to do it in that night. And so I pulled into a kind of a cutout in the rock to get away from the wind. And I was done. Like, I was exhausted. It was 11:30 at night, no energy left, didn't know how much farther I had to go, couldn't see anything. And I did the only thing I could do. I said a prayer. I was like, I need some sort of strength that's beyond my own to get out of this place. I can't do this on my own. I need more strength. Right? And the feeling that was the only feeling I really could get in that situation was, well, just keep moving forward. I thought, what did I just say? I don't have any strength to move forward. And okay, I'll move forward a few steps. I went up. I maybe went up one more switchback. And I thought, okay, I'm going to pull out everything that I have in my bag, and I'm going to wrap myself up in this bag and try to stay warm. And that was when I was really scared. And as I was thinking that, I heard my name. I hadn't seen any hikers. I hadn't seen any little lights. I hadn't seen anybody else on that part of the trail the whole time. But I heard my name. Someone said my name. And I thought, okay, either that is a park ranger who knows that I'm down here, or it's the angel of death. And I really hope it's not a park ranger because I don't like meeting new people. So I listened to that voice and I heard it again. And the curiosity of it sort of overrode my fatigue just momentarily, so I kept going up. I went up a couple more switchbacks just listening for this voice. There was a part of me thinking, oh, no, I'm delusional. I'm following voices into the wilderness. I'm going to fall off a cliff. And then I realized it was my dad. What happened was my dad, this person who doesn't really care about your feelings or what you're going through in your life, is just as long as he can listen to his audiobook. He was up at the top of the trail listening to an audiobook, and he didn't know where I was. And he waited and waited, and I wasn't there. So he started to get worried. And this 72-year-old man in loafers and jeans who had never hiked the Grand Canyon before, never, didn't even know where the trail was, where it would lead. He felt he should go down and find his son. So he started going down. He probably went about 2 miles before he could hear me. He was using a little light. It was an adapter for his cell phone. It was an extra battery. Extra battery pack had a little light on it. He was using it to go down the trail and find me. As soon as I recognized that it was my father's voice calling me, there was something inside of me. There was a strength that just propelled me forward, right? Because my dad was looking for me. So I went up as far as I could go. I kept going, just and shouting back to him. Now, he didn't have one of his hearing aids in, so he couldn't really hear me, but he could see this little light, and he even said later, he said he looked down, he saw this little light coming up the side of the cliff, and he said, well, that has to be Seth, because nobody else would be that stupid to be hiking by themselves down there. And he met up with me, I met up with him. So again, it was about 2 miles down, and I said, Dad, you didn't have to go. You didn't have to come down this far. And he said, Seth, I would go anywhere for you. I took something away from that story, that lesson, that experience of mine. Was that when we do something, even if it's imperfect, right? If it's done with the intent of helping others, it makes a difference, right? It made a difference for me. My dad didn't know the trail per se. He didn't really have the right gear. He didn't have the right light. He didn't even have his hearing aid in. But the fact that he was looking for me gave me a strength to go forward, even in a really difficult situation. And when I left the Grand Canyon after that experience, I knew what I wanted to do, what I wanted to become my mission going forward. Is I wanted to do things to help raise money and awareness for suicide prevention. Because that's something that I struggled with as a kid. And looking back on this experience at the Grand Canyon, I can tell you how many times I felt like that as a kid. Wandering through the canyon, not knowing if I was going to make it, and just holding this little light, the only thing that I had. Hoping that I'd make it out, and then hearing somebody's voice, somebody who loved me, somebody who was reaching out for me. So that's become the focus of my work lately, and ongoing. In fact, just last year, I did a suicide prevention awareness event where I hiked across the Grand Canyon and raised money for it. And I love it. The hike's still the same. It's still painful. It's still difficult. But because I know why I'm doing it, and because I know that what I do is going to help somebody, I can do the hike. And so I encourage you in what you are trying to do, anything that you are trying to do, is look for ways in which you can turn that objective into helping other people. And the hike can be the same, but the meaning behind it changes the whole experience. Thank you.